What's going on, everyone? Um, got the admin here for the Georgia Tech fan account on Twitter, Burner Sims, if you know that. If you don't, you should follow it. It's a great account. I tweet a lot of funny things. I'm all about Georgia Tech football. Um, so starting off, this is the um, game preview for week 1 for Georgia Tech. We got Clemson coming into town in the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. So I kind of just want to start off by talking about um, the tweet I made about this. If you saw it, if you didn't, I really just talked about how there's not enough Georgia Tech content out there, in my opinion. I feel like there's a lot of diehard fans like myself, and others who are kind of starving for content, especially this week. We got a huge matchup going into this week or going into Labor Day. And there's just not a lot of content. I have a lot of friends who are SEC fans and fans of other bigger programs. And, there's podcasts released every day and predictions and roster deep dives and things of that nature. And we just don't have that. So I encourage anyone, whether your knowledge of football is expansive or whether it's very limited, to go out and just create some content, or support people who do create content for Georgia Tech, because that's the only way we're going to get more. And I know, speaking for diehard fans like myself, we love it, and we love to make it, and we love to watch it and listen to it. So that's my little splurge on that. But we'll go ahead and dive into this game preview. So basically, the big talk about this game is Clemson's offense. So it's the same offense essentially at its core as it was last year. And I know that you all watched the Georgia Tech Clemson game last year. It was in Death Valley. We lost 14-8 with our backup quarterback, with Jordan Yates. Jeff Sims was not available for this game. So that's an important thing to keep in mind as well. So it's the same offense at its core. They've lost Justin Ross at wide receiver and Lynn J. Dixon at running back. These were two of their big playmakers. Both these guys are gone. So now, coming into this year, they have a young wide receiving core who is pretty inexperienced. They don't have a number one guy, but all these guys that they have, that we're gonna see on Monday night, are very talented. So not discrediting them there, but that is something to note as well, that they definitely don't have a guy that is going to go in there and just absolutely take the game over. So I think that's good for Georgia Tech. I think it could be a good first matchup for them, especially for our secondary, who, as we all know, struggled a lot last year. So that's definitely something important to keep in mind with their wide receiver core. Now, we all know about their running back room. That's a different story. It's completely stacked. If you watched the game last year, or if you watched any other Clemson games, you know the name Will Shipley. He was a 5-star recruit out of North Carolina who was a true freshman last year for Clemson, and he is just insane. He has great balance. He is very, very hard to tackle, and he's only gotten better from last year. He's their feature back, and their other two running backs are pretty solid guys as well. So I think Clemson, especially with DJ's struggles last year, and I think going into this year, I don't think he's going to do that well either. I think Clemson is going to rely very, very heavily on the run this game. So this game, like many, many other football games, is going to be won or lost in the trenches. And so, kind of moving on with that, a segue into what that's going to look like. Clemson's offensive line is pretty experienced. They're bringing back 4 guys. And they have 1 new starter, but their offensive line was not great last year. So that is definitely something that's also good for Georgia Tech, because I think our D line is one of the weaker points of our team this year. So it's just going to be really interesting to watch that kind of matchup, especially with Keon White going out there. I think we're going to see a healthy Keon White for one of the first times in his career. And one of the first times since he's been at Georgia Tech. So that's really exciting. He's a physical specimen. And I think he can really impose his dominance on this Clemson O-line if he puts his mind to it. So that'll definitely be something to watch. Obviously, I'm going to hit on it, but we all know all eyes are going to be on DJ Uiagalelei. Struggled last year. He threw more interceptions than he did touchdowns. He never threw above 300 yards in a game. So I think going into that, I think that that is a really positive sign for Georgia Tech, just because if you look at the games last year that we got absolutely torched in, like Pitt, Notre Dame, UGA, they had quarterbacks that were just slicing and dicing, guys who could put the ball anywhere they wanted to, guys that were confident back there in the pocket. DJ is not a guy that's confident in the pocket. He's not a guy who's has elite ball placement. And I think that's good for us in the passing game, because I do think that's where we struggled a lot last year. I don't think our defense was horrible at stopping the run. I think it can definitely improve, obviously, because our defense as a whole was just not great last year. But I think that stopping the pass was a lot more of a struggle than stopping the run was for us. So I think that's definitely a good sign as well with DJ. Like I said, he may have improved, but unless he's shown leaps and bounds over one offseason, which is not usually the case with quarterbacks, I think that we're going to be okay in that aspect. And I think that we can put some pressure on him. If we get some pressure early, I think we can rattle him. I think that's what you saw happen with UGA last year. I think that he got sacked more than he was expecting, and it really got to him, and he couldn't complete any passes. So look for the D-line to be applying pressure with him and trying to get to him in that regard. So moving on to Clemson's secondary. So moving, kind of changing perspective to what the Georgia Tech offense is going to look like with their defense. This is a completely different scenario than what I just talked about with Clemson's offense. Clemson's defense is stacked. They were one of the top defenses in the country last year, and they are going to be one of the top defenses in the country this year. Now, with that being said, they lost two corners, one of these being Andrew Booth, Jr., who we all know of. Great corner. He's gone. And they lost both their starting linebackers on defense, one of these being Braylon Spector, I think his name is. And both of those linebackers were studs. So it's going to be hard to replace those two guys. And it's obviously going to be hard to replace a guy like Andrew Booth Jr. But Clemson, as we know, is a program who is able to get in recruits easily, very, very highly touted recruits. And they have guys that we don't even know about that have been behind the greats like Andrew Booth and Spector at linebacker that are just ready for their moment. So they're not going to be any slouches at those positions. I think that those two positions, though, are the ones I'm hitting on because that's where we'll see new guys that don't really have a ton of game experience. So I think that's important to note with Georgia Tech's offense and what we're going to try to do, what Chip Long is going to try to do there. Their defensive line, I don't really have to talk much about that. It's probably the best defensive line in the country. They do have one guy that's going to be injured, Xavier. I'm forgetting his name right now. But he is going to be, I can actually probably look that up if we go to the Clemson injury report here. He is a guy I know that, this is from 2001. Wow. Okay. Let's see if this has it. This is talking about professional football. Okay, well, doesn't look like I'm going to be able to find it, but you'll just have to take my word for it. Xavier something Murphy. No, I don't know his name. Anyway, he's going to be out. Long story short, he is one of their starters, so they're going to be missing him. But Clemson's D-line has enough depth to be able to replace him. That D-line is very terrifying, and I think that that's going to be a big turning point in this game, a big deciding point. Georgia Tech is bringing in there's going to be 4 new starters on the O-line. Obviously, we have Jordan Williams starting back there, coming back for his 3rd year. But we have 4 new starters via the transfer portal. or via, just guys that haven't really seen a bunch of playing time yet. So interested to see how they gel together. And it's going to be a tough first matchup handling one of the toughest D-lines in the country. And I'm really interested to watch that and just to see how that plays out. Because as we know, if Jeff can sit back there and have time, he can deal, and he can put the ball in a rope and put it where he wants to. But he's not. He's most likely going to be running for his life back there. And he's a guy who you want to have back there if you don't have a good O-line, because he's very mobile and he can make plays with his feet. But with that being said, we don't want him running around all night. So O-line's gonna have to show up, do their job. Interested to see how much better they've gotten. Say what you want about Collins, the O-line year after year has gotten slightly better. It has shown improvement. So hoping that trend continues with the offensive line play. So yeah, we're basically going against the same Clemson defense. They've reloaded. And we're dealing with a Georgia Tech offense that is much improved from last year. They should be on paper at least. So like I said, we'll have Jeff Sims for this game. Last year we had Jordan Yates and still almost went in there and won with pretty much the same defense that we're going to be seeing this year. We're at home this year. We've got Jeff Sims. He's a weapon. We've got our number one wide receiver back in Malachi Carter. And we've got some new faces stepping up at wide receiver. We got Malik Rutherford. Jamal Haynes could be in the mix. Nate McCollum, we've seen before, but he's going to take an increased role in the slot this year. Guys like Ryan King, James Blackstrand could show up. Just a whole host of new faces that haven't seen a bunch of time that we're going to see. So it's really hard to pinpoint how exactly we're going to look as a team going into this game, facing this defense from an offense perspective. But I think it'll be interesting. So kind of moving on, Georgia Tech does have the questions on the offensive line. Our offense put up 298 yards on this Clemson defense last year. I think we're going to put up more than that this year, on paper, like I said, because this Clemson defense is pretty much the same as last year, if not a little worse. And this Georgia Tech offense should be a lot better with an actual competent OC that we have now. So we should put up more yards of offense than we did last year. Love Jordan Yates, but he just couldn't really move the ball like Jeff Sims can. But with that being said, discussing what I think the outcome of this game is going to be, I don't think we're going to win this game. I think that there's a chance, based on everything that I just said. I think that people are writing Georgia Tech off a little too quick. I've seen a lot of things on Twitter about how we're going to get absolutely dog walked. We're going to get murdered. We're going to lose by 50. We might not even score a touchdown. Go ahead and don't believe any of that. We're going to score. We're going to hang with them. I think it'll be a decently close game at halftime. The athleticism in these two teams is very different. I think, as we all know, Clemson is a top tier program in the country. They have better athletes than we do. That's just a matter of fact. I think the athleticism is going to show towards the fourth quarter. They're going to pull away a little bit. I do think that we cover. I don't think we lose by 3 touchdowns, by 21.5. I think the point spread is now. I think we cover. I think we lose by 10 to 14 points. Now, let me tell you why that's not necessarily a bad thing. Now, I'm not one of those fans that accepts a loss. I don't like losing. I personally haven't been very, very pleased with the product that Collins has put on the field the last 3 years. I understand that rebuilding from the triple option is something that's very hard. He said when he was hired that you wouldn't really start to see real on the field results until about year 3 or 4. We're entering year 4 here in his tenure. So I think there's an aspect of patience that is required with him. But I haven't been pleased. But with that being said, I don't think you can be super upset if we lose this game as long as we look like a football team. Because in my opinion, over the last 3 years, when we've played teams like this, obviously aside from last year when we played Clemson and looked pretty decent and almost won, you've got your Pitts that we played last year, you got your Notre Dames, and you got your UGAs, and we just went out there and looked like a Pop Warner team. If we can go out there on national television on Monday night and look like a good football team and hang with Clemson, who is aspiring to reach the playoff this year. I mean, everyone, Paul Feinbaum, Kirk Herbstreit, Reese Davis, ESPN, everyone is putting this Clemson team back in the playoff this year. They've got a chip on their shoulder. They missed it for the first time last year since 2016, I think, which is insane. So they're coming in with a chip on their shoulder. They're looking for revenge. If we can go, obviously, love to win this game. And like I said, there's a chance that we do it. Everything would have to fall in place. We'd have to force some turnovers. We'd have to play pretty perfect ball. But with that being said, it can happen. Now, it's okay to be pleased if we cover and hang with them because people are expecting us to just get absolutely blown out. And in Jeff Collins' tenure versus teams like this, for the most part, we've gotten blown out. We've gotten embarrassed. We didn't look like a football team at all. And I think that us as Georgia Tech fans, we can collectively say that we're looking for progress here. We're looking for a better product on the field week after week. From what we've gone through with Collins being 9-25 as a record in his first 3 years, I think that we just want some competition. We want to be competitive. Obviously, I think that Georgia Tech has the ability to make a bowl game this year, but this Clemson game isn't one that you can exactly mark as a win on the schedule, just because of who they are as a team. But if we go out there, everyone's going to be watching. This will be the first time that Collins has really been on a national stage. Like, people like to say that UNC game was like, his best win, which it was. They were ranked. It's his only ranked win. And people like to say that was on a national stage, but it was on a Saturday night. People aren't really going to tune in to the Georgia Tech UNC game, if I'm telling you the truth. But this game is on Labor Day. It's the only game on Monday night. It's in Mercedes-Benz. It's part of the Chick-fil-A kickoff series. Everyone who loves college football is going to have this game on their TV. So this is a really big pivotal point for the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets on who they are and how the nation perceives them and how recruits perceive them and how far we've come as a program. This is going to be huge for us, to see if we can go out there and maybe sneak out a win. But if not, most likely not. If we can put a good product on the field, compete with Clemson, give them a run for their money, and kind of show the college football world, like, hey, we're here, we're getting better, we're transitioning from the option, and we're showing improvement. So that's what I'm looking for out of this Georgia Tech team. Final score, I think we get 24-14. I'm going to say is going to be my prediction. Tigers on top in that one. But, I don't think, kind of wrapping up here, I just don't think that us losing, as long as it's not by like over the spread, I don't think that is necessarily a bad thing. I think that you have to look at that in a different way. And I just want to reiterate, I'm not okay with losing. I want to win this game, but I'm just being realistic here. I don't want to get anyone's hopes up and make this video and say that we're going to go in here and absolutely dominate. I wish we would. I think that there's a possibility. I'm not going to write us off because we are going to be a much improved team, but I don't know if I see that happening. So that's about all I have for the game preview. I may continue to do these throughout the season if it's received well. But with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and sign off here. And hope everyone has a good rest of their week, and just really looking forward to this game. So we'll see what happens. And as always, go Jackets, and to hell with Georgia.